Hey, Simon.
Hello, Jam. I thought I would just change a variable in your name and see if people liked it more. I don't know.
Jam.
Jam. I don't know if it works. Jim is better. Jim is definitely better.
I do have a friend who calls me Jim Jam,
Oh,
so
oh,
it kind of fits. You
kind
can.
of like Tim Tam, which is an Australian cookie. Fun
I
fact.
I didn't know that. Is it
Yeah,
is it a good cookie?
it's
Is it?
delicious. It's
It's,
wonderful.
it's not like
Yeah, they sell them in Trader Joe's as like Australian chocolate sandwiches.
okay, so it's not like
It's
the,
a it's
the
a vibe.
Marmalite. What is it? Marmalite or what's that paste that everyone?
Marmite.
Like, well, yeah, the very we're talking polarizing condiments here. One is well, I love Marmite myself. I love Vegemite. I love any kind of these off yeast spreads. Maybe one day, Jim, I'll send you a jar and we can do a taste test. My son loves it. My daughter hates it. By the way, fun fact. That's an interesting little A/B test there with my kids.
You go.
And how to get them to enjoy that. But wait, what are we talking about today?
You know what? I'm just trying to figure out how to segue in this to my intro, but there's no segue, so I'm just going to jump into it. So, Simon,
Yes,
you have a bachelor's in psychology, right?
I do.
And that actually probably does come in pretty handy into what you do now.
It does frequently, actually. In fact, the statistics part of it in particular, it's very handy.
Yeah. And, my undergrad is in graphic design and commercial art, which is really handy for data analytics. And here we are in the world of marketing data and analytics, and it's a winding road that we've taken to get here. And, I wonder about the next 10 to 20 years, especially as rapidly as things are changing with AI. And so I'm curious about how to think about career progression, especially for people who are maybe early to mid-career trying to decide where to focus.
Yeah.
And to help us
Well,
explore,
you started writing obituaries, right? That was your career evolution. So you went from graphic design to obituary writing,
I did do
data
that.
science,
I did do
after
that.
a long winding road.
I also sold vacuum cleaners door to door, but that's another story.
Oh,
Um,
I bet that sucks. Hey,
Yeah. So, talking about like the world of career progression, for data and analytics and marketing, kind of this realm, I want to explore, perhaps delve into these questions. AI didn't write that, by the way. I threw that in myself just to be counter. So to delve into these questions, we have someone who's gone through similar progressions and transitions in his own career. Sani Manić, a marketing and optimization enthusiast. He spent more than 15 years helping businesses grow through better user experiences. He's been a UI developer, a WordPress developer, a chief technical officer for Search Engine Journal and Alpha Brand Media, a website optimization consultant with Instacart. He recently co-founded Web Performance Tools, a company dedicated to simplifying workflows for digital professionals through innovative tools like Cohesio for optimizing ad campaigns and Podpacer for enhancing podcast production efficiency. And he has his own podcast, which I'm an avid listener to, No Hacks Podcast. It's a show that helps marketers and developers understand what makes great user experiences. Welcome to the show, Sani.
Thank you. No one has ever introduced me like that. This was impeccable. This was beautiful.
that's what we every time before.
That's why you pay him.
Yeah, before I was a co-host, I was a guest on the show, and I said the exact same thing. And that's how I found out he wrote obituaries. So when we die, he's
so
going to
I
write
should
your
get-
life story and
I
publish
should
it to
get
the world.
ready.
It's a skill that always, it's evergreen. It's
It
always
is.
together. If I ever need to go back into obituary writing,
Yeah.
analytics
People-
things out.
You still got it.
Look, accounting and obituary writing, right? Because nothing's certain but death and taxes. Those are the two
Well,
things.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Death and taxes. That I got both skills there. So today our theme for this episode, like I mentioned before, it's about kind of career evolution and how marketers and analysts can think about growing and changing as their career progresses. But before we dive into that, Sani, give us a little bit of intro about you, how you got to where you're at.
Yeah.
Maybe the elevator pitch for your.
I think how I got here was by not being able to settle. I think that there's no better way to describe it. I always have. As you get older, it's less, but always chasing that. What's going to be next? I need to do something else. I need to find. Again, it's not everyone. In the Middle Ages, that was the Renaissance man. Now they call it ADHD or whatever. Like I think those concepts are very similar. But it's just not being able to not being willing to settle for one thing. And as I wrote in the notes for this episode, is the thrill of learning something new is something that will never get old for me. And I'm ready to just completely drop whatever I know in one area just to go and find something else and not just touch it and play with it a little bit. I want to really learn and master a skill and then move on, like the aliens in the Independence Day, and then move to the next planet and the next planet until there's no more planets and you're writing an obituary for me. Yes.
Hey. Yeah. Well, Jim wouldn't exist then either. That'd be horrible. But no, perhaps, I mean, hey, Ishi, but it's problem solving, right? And I think that is, we frame it in different ways, but that is fundamentally what it is. This knack for seeing something that needs some attention that you think maybe you can bring a slight worldview to it. So, but wait, so what did you start with? What was the
What I started with,
Yeah.
it's a funny story. I moved to the US for, this was mid 2000s. I moved to the US for like 6 months.
Okay.
And my parents and most of the people back home in Serbia didn't even have email or use email daily back then. So I set up a WordPress website on WordPress.com, which is self-hosted version. Like there's no hosting company or anything. I set up to post updates. Like I'm alive, everything's fine. Like, don't worry about me. So it was just easier for them to find an old computer. Just type in the URL, see the update. I know it wasn't that long ago, but yes, it sounds like it's 50 years ago or whatever. Sounds like Tom Hanks in Castaway sending bottles with messages or whatever, but it wasn't really like that. So that's how I started playing with digital stuff and setting up that website. And then, hey, maybe this could be different. Maybe I can try to change this. You change colors first, and then you realize, oh, I need to go to like GoDaddy or HostGator, whatever hosting company, and host it there if I want to install plugins and whatnot. And then one thing led to another, and here I am. I guess always tweaking. I guess problem solving really is the best way to describe this. Optimization mindset, whatever you want to call it. If you're not happy with the way things are, you have two options. Just be quiet about it and just be okay with that, or try to do something about it. Simple as that.
Yeah. So you got bitten by WordPress, the WordPress bug pretty early on.
Oh, very early. 2.4 was the first version I worked with. Yes, with the blue admin, the old ugly blue admin.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Wow. And so 2.4, what's it up to now? Is what's the version?
I don't even, I think 6 point something or 7. Like, it's really, it's complete. It's a different product. Like this was before custom post types.
Oh, man.
That I started.
Yeah. And you spent a lot of time kind of going all in on WordPress development. Probably still do, right?
Less so now, but yes, I did. I went to all kinds of conferences, and also WordPress is just a perfect ecosystem where, especially back then, where there wasn't all those page builder plugins, like third-party page builder plugins, where there's different flavors of WordPress. It was just WordPress and the same for everyone. You were able to explore that universe almost fully. If you want to learn how plugins and hooks work, if you want to learn how all those different things that power WordPress work, you were able to just look at the source code. Hey, this is how they wrote it. Like it moves through this, then goes there, then information sends this, it sends to this another file. And you were able to really almost fully understand how WordPress worked. And for me, that was such a rewarding experience. I was in that space for at least 7 to 8 years, like really hardcore into WordPress. And I think it helped me develop that mindset even further. Because when you're trying to optimize and figure something out, if you can't, it's not very, your confidence takes a hit, basically. WordPress was written in such a way that you just read at those, you can look at those files, you download it, you can read the files, you can see exactly what's happening. It's code like you wrote it, but better in some ways, especially then. So I think, yeah, I spent quite a lot of time in WordPress ecosystem.
See, I spent a little bit of time looking at the PHP files and trying to make edits and then crashing my site and thinking like, okay, this isn't for me. This is
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. I mean, now with AI, all of those, ChatGPT, Claude, they're so good at understanding WordPress because all the documentation and all the code is online. I mean, if you take something like Cursor, we'll talk about using AI to build products later, I think. It's just say, hey, I want you to write this for me, and I want the file to do this and this and this, or a plugin. It's easy. Like, it's super easy.
Yeah. Cursor has been a game changer for me. It's just so much of an easier coding environment. Yeah, it's just amazing. But
real quick, for those folks who are, so I started building websites a long time ago, but I've been out of the website building game for a long time
Right.
at this point. What is Cursor?
It's a code editor. It's an IDE basically, not just a code editor. Where it's an extension of the Visual Studio Code thing. I
Okay.
think it's a wrapper around that because it completely ports your settings from Visual Studio Code. It talks to LLMs. It talks to Claude. It talks to ChatGPT, whichever model you choose, and then you have chat within the code. Like you can select some code and say, why the hell doesn't this work? And it will be able to look at the other files and tell you what the problem is. It's not always right, so you do need to have some skills. But if you have some skills, it basically, if you're a senior developer and treat it as your junior developer, oh my God, you're going to be so much faster. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, and for Luddites like me who are like okay with code, you can say, hey, I'm trying to write a function that does this thing, like in plain English, right? And then it'll say, oh, here you go. And it's like, here's the function, here's the class, here's everything you need. And like you said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but like it's a great starting point for something.
Usually it's almost there. Like
Yeah.
it's never completely off.
Yeah.
Wait, so I know. Okay, we're talking a lot about web dev. Right? How did you then progress from web dev to
Yes.
the marketing, the CRO world?
Yes. So CRO is 3 steps further.
Yeah. I mean, it's a logical conclusion for a lot of folks, but a lot of folks,
Yes.
it's a different
There-
group that often will come to that, right? It's not necessarily the web dev originally.
I've had a very transformative experience. So one of my web dev clients were people who own Search Engine Journal, the biggest SEO publication today. Even then, they were not the biggest back then, but they were pretty big. One of the first SEO dedicated blogs.
I used to read it every
And-
day.
Yeah.
Most people were. I mean, they're even bigger now than they were before. I guess people consume news in a different way, or at least you do. So basically, one of my contracts I had, this was it wasn't Upwork, it was Odesk,
Yeah.
is the way it was called back then, was for people from Search Engine Journal, and they hired me as a WordPress developer for some other projects that they had. Then they added me. They let me work on SEJ website, which is how everybody calls it. I used to call it. It's not Search Engine. It's SEJ, obviously. And I keep getting better and better, and that in the end, I was CTO at Search Engine Journal, and I still don't believe that happened. I was just a solo web developer from Serbia who never did web development before, and like 4 years later, 5 years later, life is not supposed to work that way, but sometimes it does.
What do they say? Luck favors the prepared, right? Like,
Luck favors the ones who try a lot of times. I guess yeah. Oh, and prepared. Yes, you will be prepared at some point. Yes.
exactly.
But one big experience, and I was still a developer. I was still a developer for the first few years there. But when we had one of the weekly partner calls, and I was, you're a cocky web developer, and all the marketing people are bad, and everyone says like SEO people. That was the time when there was Black Hat. Google wasn't this smart as smart as now, and in the web dev space, the saying was SEO people are all hacky, and they just try to hack Google. And I was just playing that joke on the other 3 people on the call, all SEO people, by the way. And I just say that, and silence. Okay, wrong crowd. But then one of them says, "What do you think? How do you think we feel about web developers?" And I'm like, "Oh, there's another side." Like in Lost, the TV show, when they find the others. That was my moment, like that The Others episode, when other people show up on the island and you realize, wow, there's more to life than the things you've been used to. So yeah, that was one of the most important meetings I've had in my career so far, and this was almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah, like trying to see it from the other person's point of view and having empathy
Absolutely.
towards what they're trying to achieve and what they're working towards is so important. I play a similar role and have played a similar role trying to bridge the gap between the marketing team and the analytics and data team. And it's hard when they speak different languages, they have different acronyms, it's hard to see it from both sides. But the person that can bridge any gap between like 2 departments is always going to be very, very valuable.
One of the most valuable people on the team, absolutely, yes. If you can be, the way I say it from my perspective, you can be, to the marketing people, you can be the smartest web developer they have. To the web developers, you can be the smartest marketer they have. Not the best in the world, but it's easy to talk to you and they understand you and you understand them. both those islands will want to hang out with you and work with you, and your career becomes super easy at that point.
Absolutely. So were there any specific like key moments where you shifted into one role more than the other, like from developer to SEO or technical marketing, or from marketing
Right.
to CRO? Was there like a shift that you made that conscious decision, or was it just
it was more of a mindset shift. But that meeting was that shift for me, and I started thinking, okay, it's not just about building the website and saying my code is flawless, deal with it. It's about what does it do after you ship it, basically. And I was never SEO in the traditional sense. Technical SEO, I did a lot of that, but SEO, I'm not going to say I ever did that. No, absolutely not. But just looking at your product, which is the website in this case, from a different standpoint, it's not just this is fast, there's no bugs, I killed it. It's more about how do people and Google and whatever else interact with your product. And that's when you realize this is what CRO is, what I do now. It's not about building a page, it's about building something that users will be able to interact with. So empathy, I guess, is the word. Looking at what the other side is doing with the product you have, I think is the most important thing you can do.
right? And curiosity, right? Like it's easy to get into the mindset of I built this thing, I built this website, I'm all done now. It's off my plate. But like to have that curiosity to say, I wonder how people are using this. And maybe that's like, oh, there's this thing called Google Analytics I can install on the site to see what people are doing on the page, which was kind of that's how I got hooked on, going from SEO to data analytics was, Google Analytics is free. Let's put this code on the site and see what happens. So yeah, definitely having that curiosity is I
think if you don't have curiosity in 2025, you're going to be left behind at some point, if not already, whatever you're doing.
Although, sorry, this is more of a tangent than anything. Just thinking back to that developer story. The funny thing was when I was working on the analytics side, similar to Jim, when we were talking about using Google Analytics. Well, one of the things my devs would often say to me is, the website would be a lot faster if you just removed this tag manager that you got here. And that was always one of those things where I was just like, okay, that's not happening. Like I appreciate that, but that is a sacred cow. With all of that noted, though, it did serve as a catalyst moment, similar to your story of I wonder though. I don't want to remove it, but I wonder how I can meet them halfway on this. Like maybe there is something we do need to talk about in terms of like the tech debt that we have here. And there was this whole sort of, well, everything's asynchronous. I'm like, yeah, but if it's full of bloat, it doesn't matter. It's still going to take forever to load. And it did start some interesting conversations about, oh, well, maybe we can make this thing faster. Maybe there are ways to do this. And it was a moment of coming together rather than divergence. But for whatever reason, we do seem to all, I don't know if it's still as true today, but we seem to rally or, sort of get into our own little tribes. And it's hard often to break out of those tribes to go across to these other disciplines because we have our own sort of, rightly or wrongly, demonization of alternative approaches, of alternative solutions, because we've only had those negative experiences, not the scenarios where we can come together and hold hands. Is that?
And not only negative, but staying in the tribe is comfortable.
It is. It's safe.
It's safe. Exactly. Yep.
Right. You go to the conference, the analytics conference, and they're all bitching and moaning about the marketing.
Yeah.
They don't get us. Yes. Yeah, we're right and they're wrong. And it's not helpful.
No.
A CRO has the same thing with hippos, like the highest paid person. That's always the bad person. But that person always knows more than you do if you're a CRO person. And you're just going around their back and saying, this guy doesn't get my efforts and my knowledge and my uniqueness or whatever. You're the problem. If you are going around and saying the other side is the problem, you're probably at least equal part of that problem.
So did you study stats at any point to take on the CRO challenge? No?
Just online courses. I did the CXL mini degree for CRO, but I didn't study like university level study of statistics. No, never.
So one of the interesting things I think about just CRO and A/B testing and over time has always just been this inherent challenge of like someone coming to the table and be like, look, this thing is significant. We should make all these changes. And then you wait and you're like, no, it's actually not significant. Like there's a regression to the mean over time. And these are somewhat I wouldn't say super elevated statistical constructs, but like the idea of power calculations and just like understanding sample size and these kind of things require a little bit of background. Is that something that you found yourself coming to in the role? Like you sort of like trial by error, like trial and error to
It was
figure
mostly,
out?
I mean, trial by error also, and this is what most, I'm going to say good CROs will tell you. Don't trust what if the tool is green and says this is statistically significant, maybe check and make sure.
Yeah.
Like use a proper calculator. You don't need to know everything about statistics, but there are calculators. There are ways to, I mean, what's 99 times 7,560? I don't know, but if I pull a calculator, I'll tell you. So you can use a calculator to see if your results are statistically significant. If you just go into a tool and say, hey, this seems to be kind of greenish, so maybe it's significant and it's winning, so my boss will like me. And if you knowingly use that information to look good, you're a hack. And you know you're a hack. That's the worst part.
Well, I think what's hard though is any field that is new and novel will inherently attract a lot of folks to it who are somewhat cowboyish, myself included, right? Like I would include myself in this, in that over time I had to remember my background that I'd learned in stats and go, wait. I'm being fed these stories. People want to hear these stories. And, we talk a lot in the analytics industry, especially about being people pleasers. And I think there's this inherent fear that that's a very easy path to go down, especially with CRO. Is like, I just want to see people smile and happy with the work that I'm doing. And over time, then you optimize the tests to always have good outcomes, or to
also in CRO, lying with numbers and statistics is so easy. If you want to do it, like you can always find something that makes you look good, but you shouldn't do that. Like they will figure it out eventually when they see that the money's not coming in. And like, do you want to be there when they figure it out and they're mad? Like maybe just be honest. The thing we tried didn't work. I think this is why it didn't work. Let's try this other thing. It's super easy to lie with statistics, as you know better than I do.
Lies, damned lies, and statistics.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
What is your, I'm just fully putting on the spot. Do you have a hot take on the nature of the CRO industry at this moment in time? Like, is there a, Jim and I talk a lot we've talked a decent amount about the balance between sort of AI-driven personalization and CRO, in a world where you go, will we even need CRO in the future? That's a pretty hot take, because if you can, personalize experience to every individual, you don't need to test.
So theory. I don't think it's a hot take because it's my take. So it's a smart. AI will not be able to fully do CRO anytime soon, because AI means using old data that works somewhere else to try to optimize something today, which is a different project, a different website. So I had a guest on my podcast recently, Manuel Correa, who said best practices are always out of date, and AI can only do best practices when it's optimizing your website. So if you just go full autopilot and let AI optimize your website, there will be mistakes and you will not be aware of them. And when you are aware of them, it will be too late. Maybe at some point we'll be able to like fully, completely optimize every pixel on a website. We're not even close to that. So that's my take. And I don't think it's worth trying, because it's not going to work. Not yet. With the models we have right now, that is not what they're built to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting one in the, because I hear you on that broadly as the discipline sort of continues down the path it's on. It's more the balance of just like, what if everything just goes like so hyper personalized and there's no singular feed experience? We always talk about like SEO to a degree here. Like there's no rankings, because every single person has their own unique feed based on their own preferences and interests and all these things. And you're like, yeah, gosh, I guess like Amazon's a pretty website to think about CRO for, because everything is so personalized. You can think about like the blocks of content, but like not necessarily the content that's within them. So I don't know, is that a concern, or you just, that's just a unique problem for them versus like the whole CRO world?
Yeah. I don't think it's a concern. I think there are so many brands and companies that are not and will never be at that level that they can pull it off. They will never have the data. So unless you are like buying someone else's data and making decisions based on that data to apply to your website and your company, which sounds like a mistake to me. Unless you're doing that, you will not be able to fully automate CRO and optimization. And I don't think we should even try, because A/B testing is like the hottest thing from people outside of CRO when they think about CRO. Like, when can we test something? That's what every client will ask you when you start working with them. When can we test it? CRO is about boring research, 80% or more, and only then you get to test something. And I don't think these tools that give you AI to just fix things, their research is not your research and not based on your data.
When you're thinking about successful moments in CRO, I'm often concerned, this is a psychology problem. It's like in the world of psychology, there's the replication problem. That is a very, very big thing right now with a lot of these classic studies that you look at and be like, oh, like the marshmallow study with kids and like delayed gratification, not a real thing. And you're like, well, what do you mean? Like, can't replicate it. It doesn't replicate the same way it did in that lab setting. And I look at some CRO tests that I've seen and go, is that going to be a truth forever? Is this just like could I replicate that study if I tried to do it again? And well, this is the problem. If you can't replicate it, was it true in the first place? Or was it just like, it was at that one moment in time, and therefore it was well optimized for the month of January, but it is no longer an optimized website for February.
So this is a hot take.
Yeah.
I don't think it is, because it's mine again.
Sure.
There's so many tools that sell you databases of tests. You can get access to like 10,000, 20,000 test results, and then based on that, you don't have to test. This worked 65% of the time. This worked, and just apply it. How many of those are pre-mobile first? How many of those are pre-pandemic? How many of those are different country? Like, who are we kidding here? It's if you're basing your decisions today on historical data that happened at some point that you don't know if it was measured correctly, and you guys know this better than I do, why this is important. Would you be willing to trust your business or your client's business to do something like that? I would not. I would never dare to do something like it, ever.
Yeah, there are too many nuances for each individual business to say, well, they tried this over here and it worked for them. Let me try it. Like, it could have the complete opposite effect. So like the whole like best practices are not, maybe it's a good starting point to think about what you might be testing, but you can't just take it wholesale and say, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one though, because like, I don't know, you probably hear those Shopify ads where they're like, we've got the best checkout, and from an analytics point of view, the analytics devs look at that and be like, no, you do not. You have the worst from an analytics implementation perspective. But it's neither here nor there. Their whole thing is predicated on, we're going to limit the degrees of control that you will have with our ecosystem, because we know that this is the core optimized experience. I think there's something to be said for universal experiences across multiple different websites. If I know how this checkout system works, it's very easy for me as a user, having gone through it multiple times on these other websites. But do you think that is a sort of a fundamentally bad approach then from Shopify, sort of enforcing that on everyone? Or is there like just a certain maybe scale or tier that it doesn't make sense to test when you're like just selling cookies to, e-commerce cookie sale, like not like actual cookie. Like,
so when you say fundamentally bad, bad for whom?
For the individual brand that would be considering, how do I better optimize my experience? But on aggregate, it works out for Shopify.
Both those are true, I think. I think I had a similar experience. Well, not I had, but when I was living in Sweden, when Klarna became a big thing, and buy now, pay later. Yeah. It's a Swedish company that really first started in Sweden.
Sure.
When I was living there, when that checkout showed up and they did integrations with WooCommerce, Shopify probably as well, every website up until then was a different experience when you're buying. And here you have something that, first of all, it knows me, like it remembers, it has a cookie on me. So every website that I go to, the website doesn't know who I am, but the widget knows who I am. It's the same experience everywhere. I know where to click exactly. I know where to fill the data if I need to. And for the end user, the familiarity and just being able to do the checkout faster without any doubts or without anything that you need to add to it definitely helps with the conversions.
Right.
For the individual brand, like what if Klarna decides I don't want to work with you anymore, and then now people expect something different and you don't have it anymore? Same thing with Shopify. What if Shopify decides, hey, for this group of websites, let's mess with them. Let's mess up their checkout.
Right.
Like what happens then?
I often wonder how is Shopify testing this on an ongoing basis, because in theory it would suggest that there is a subset of websites that are always going to be testing, that they'll do some testing within in terms of how their checkout experience is going to work.
Yeah.
Which is
So I don't
scary.
like everything being the same. No, that's never a good thing. But
Yeah.
if it works for anyone, it works for Shopify. So I'm not worried about them.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, not to catastrophize, but it's sort of like as we gradually A/B test our ways toward the most homogenous internet possible, because ultimately we find like, yeah, this is the optimal experience over time, and you're just like, okay, I don't know if that is a good or a bad thing, but
It's a horrible thing.
But on the flip side, you look at Amazon, you go, the one-click checkout, probably the greatest CRO test of all time, that they figured out how to best optimize the buying infrastructure on their website. So, but again, that's the power of Amazon, not the power of the individual brand. So it's all kinds of complicated.
Exactly.
I'm definitely going down the road. Yeah.
Would you rather live in a country like North Korea, where everyone has the same haircut, dresses the same, and looks the same, or in a country that gives you some individual rights where you can be whoever you want to be? Like that's Shopify checkout versus whatever other experience. But it's easier to manage people in North Korea. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Sure.
Manage.
Yes.
So this is the part where I get to play my role as podcast host to pull Simon back out of the.
Oh, I thought you were going to say now we're doing the geopolitical moment where we go on the spot about our ratings of various dictators around the world.
Right. No.
Oh, you have that?
Oh God.
So pulling us a little bit back on track. You've gone through a lot of iterations: web dev, technical marketing, CRO, and recently you kind of made the leap into co-founder of WRT. Did I say that right?
WPT, yeah, Web
Sorry,
Performance Tools.
WPT. I was one letter off. And so I'm curious to get your thoughts. I talk to a lot of people still in the analytics world, and with all of the layoffs happening and mergers between consultancies and things going crazy, a lot of people are thinking about starting their own consultancy. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what was the thing that made you take the leap?
Middle-age crisis, like midlife crisis. What I don't know what to call it, but basically, I was going through some things, nothing dramatic and serious, and I read a book, and this will sound cheesy, but it's a book where one chapter is about you go to meet the maker, and they show you what your life could have been if you tried harder, if you really went for what you cared about. And that kind of resonated with me, because I always thought about maybe I want to build a SaaS, but my skills are WordPress, and that doesn't translate to modern SaaS development. I want to do this, but I can't do it for whatever reason. For years and years, I've been putting it off. And I read that, and it kind of got me thinking, I either need to accept that this will never happen and never think about it again, or I need to give it all I have, which is what I'm doing now, basically, with a broken sleep pattern and whatnot. If you want something, it's okay to stop wanting and not try, but you need to be aware of, hey, I gave up, and that's fine. For me, this was a time where and especially with AI, that makes things easier, and that skills gaps are just smaller and smaller, whatever you want to do. I just thought this was a time where I should try. I had a great co-founder who has great business building experience. So that was, I mean, he asked me, do you want to start a company? And that was my sign. Like, if I don't do this now, I need to stop thinking about this and just focus on other things in life and be an employee until I get my obituary.
So what does Web Performance Tools do then? What's the crux of it?
It's an umbrella company for SaaS businesses, essentially. We find something that could have been done better and faster in a more efficient way, and we build a tool for it. So can I don't want to plug the products, but can I mention what they do just to give?
Yeah, no, I think the context is important.
Okay, so the first product we had was, I have a podcast, and I had a stretch last year where I did 17 episodes in 34 days.
Good Lord.
And that was insane.
Man.
That was full episodes. That was completely while I had a full-time job and another client on the side. It was completely insane.
Jim and I have done like 3 in the past 2 weeks, and we're both like, oh
I
my
know,
God,
too much work.
I can't do the pace.
I know. I wasn't planning to do that. I just offered to partner with two conferences and interview their speakers. They asked me to. I said yes. It all happened to be at around the same time. It was not easy. I took let me see, 2 or 3 month break after I was done with that because I just needed the summer off of everything. But what I did then is, everyone ChatGPT, everyone uses ChatGPT. I just checked, hey, can you help me use Cloudflare workers to build me a tool that's going to help me prepare an interview outline? Like, I don't want to research my guests and know what they do. I just want to have a tool that will scrape the data somehow, or I feed it the data. This is my outline template. I just want you to give me the most basic outline that I can just show up and pretend that I did my research. And that was the only way. So I did that. It turned out to be super easy because ChatGPT even then could write the Cloudflare worker code that you just deploy to Cloudflare. You have a web page, a random URL where you go to fill the data and it gives you the outline. So I realized, wait a minute. If I did this, not even writing a line of code in a few hours, why not try to make a product? And this is where Podpacer, which is the podcast planning tool and interview prep tool, whatever you want to call it, this is where it was born. And then after that, it was just, it was a need I had, essentially, that I realized there's no tool that does this. Every tool for podcasters, as you probably know, you get pitches all the time, is we'll help you promote, we'll do the social clips, we do the videos, we do the editing. No one puts you in that chair prepared. Like there's no tool that focuses on that part of podcaster experience. And I struggled with that. This is where most of my time went because I wanted to be ready for the guest. So that's one. I realized this is something that no one does and where I need help, and why not build it? The second one was I was working for an e-commerce agency that does a lot of PPC and a lot of meta ads for their clients. I audited that and I realized that most of the ads don't make sense with the landing pages. Like what the ad says, there's a discount that says 30%. The landing page will say 15 because someone updated it. The campaign is over on the website. The ad is still running, whatever. And I realized, yeah, there's so many ways that you can use even AI to optimize your ads. You can use AI or whatever to optimize your landing page. But who is checking that? Like who's making sure those two are in sync? So that's the other tool. That's Cohesio. It's a cohesiveness platform for ads that looks at your ads and looks at your landing pages in a very detailed way and gives you a full report of cohesiveness score between the two. So, end of the plug. Basically, I realized that this is something that if I don't build this, it's going to keep not existing. And maybe I'm skilled enough to try to build it. That was it. And this is what people, like you said, in analytics who want to start a product or an agency, yes, you can. Like, trust me, you can do it. If you can spend a weekend talking to ChatGPT and have deep existential questions like, why do you always get it wrong? Why don't you listen to me? And stuff like that, you'll walk out of that weekend with something that resembles a product. You don't know where to host it? Ask ChatGPT. You don't know what Cloudflare is? Ask ChatGPT. You don't know which stack to use? Ask ChatGPT. And you will get there. You will age horribly in that weekend, but you will get there. It's possible.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I've been wanting to somehow sequester myself for like an entire weekend or even a week and just nonstop go on a deep dive into all of the, ChatGPT and Replit and all of the different tools to really understand them better and how to use them better. Because I think right now my use of them is still fairly surface level, but it's like, how do I get the time to spend to really learn these new tools? I mean, at some point you just have to focus and do it, or else you're going to get left behind, I think. But
you can do one day, you can do half a day. You can start there, and then when you see, okay, I'm really building something, the second half of that day becomes available because whatever plan you had, you're building a product now, you're building a company, and then the next day becomes available. Like, it's easy when you get some traction. The thing where I think people are stopping is, I don't see the traction, this is too confusing, this is not for me, I'm done. Start small, like I did with the first Podpacer iteration. I wanted to have a Cloudflare worker that takes some input and talks to OpenAI API and gives me something back. That is easy for anyone. Anyone can build something like that using ChatGPT. Don't worry about the database. Don't worry about hosting it. Like, Cloudflare worker is literally a page on the internet. Not literally, but works as a page on the internet. So start small. Find a super small problem you have that you want to fix, you want to build a tool for, and just talk to ChatGPT until it says enough already. Just go away and or whatever. I think it's that easy.
Well, Jim, just thinking about that out loud, like, because I mean, I had similar thoughts of like I want to sequester myself and whatever. The reality is life gets in the way. What I found, for me at least, and perhaps this is what you solve for here, Slobodan, but the idea is you just, if you're going in aimless or directionless, of just like I'm trying to learn this thing, or I'm trying to tinker, and you don't have an actual output that you want to aim toward, I think that is where I see a lot of people struggle with this. And it sounds
That's the
like
worst possible
you went
outcome,
into
yeah.
this with like I actually have a vision for what I want to do, not just like I want to see what is possible. Is that a fair framing?
100%. What I used to say is scratch your own itch, yes,
Yeah.
but if you don't have an itch, go roll in the mud. Like
Yeah.
do whatever it takes to get an itch, like get infected. What? Just find an itch, and then scratch the itch, because scratching an itch, the how to build is super easy with LLMs, yes. But don't just go in. I'm going to learn something this weekend. That is never going to work. Have a problem to solve, even if it's a stupid problem. If it's some most basic web app, just try that first.
Yeah. So you've been working here now on these tools and on WPT for about a year, right?
About a year, I would say, a bit less than a year. Maybe I think it was April or May last year. Yeah.
Okay. So where do you see the next phase, the next year, 2 years, 3 years? Are you trying to grow?
The next phase, we want to have a lot of web apps that make people's lives easier. Yes. So we don't want to stop with 2. Of course, bringing them to market, selling them, and growing them, that's one thing. But as you build a product, as it gets a life of its own, you can hire people for it. You can hire, I can sort of step back and work on the next product and the next product. Why stop doing this? It's fun. That's the way I see it.
Exactly. And I'm curious how you think about going from sort of a solo founder or co-founder of this company to growing a team. This is something that's very much on my mind as I'm trying to grow my business. What does that look like for you? How do you think about that moving forward?
Yeah, this is, I mean, you can do a lot as a solo founder as well. Like it's super easy to do it as a solo founder. I had a co-founder to start with, so it wasn't a solo founder situation at all. It doesn't fully apply, but I always built small-ish things on my own. I think solo founder is just someone who, like I told you, wants to dedicate a weekend to trying to see if they can build something that they think or know there's a market for. But going from that to hiring a team, at some point, your time that you spend on things where it's not necessary for you to do them, but you don't know how to automate, or you haven't had the time to automate, is better spent elsewhere. And at that point, it's better to bring someone in who's going to at least keep you organized, if nothing else, and help you with the focus shifts all the time. If I have to go from developer mode to how do I sell this mode to how do I write this cold email mode, those shifts, that's very taxing. That gets you tired really quickly. So trying not to wear too many hats at once is why I think people should hire early if they can afford it.
Right. And are you looking for like EAs, like offshore? Well,
yeah, that's like, one thing also, and developers. Yes. Those are the 2 main things, because EA absolutely. I've never had someone have a password for my Google inbox for Gmail until now, and it's so much better. Life is easier, significantly easier when you have someone, but also find someone where it takes a lot of training, it takes trial and error. But if you have a person you can trust, that if it needs to be done, it's more likely to be done if I give it to this person than if I try to do it. That's when life becomes better.
Yeah. Sorry, I used an acronym and I didn't explain. So EA, Executive Assistant, for anyone wondering.
I think that's a common acronym.
I think so. But
yeah.
EA Sports.
Yeah.
Come on.
Exactly.
There's other things.
Yeah. No. Just looking at you got 2 tools right now. As you think about the future here, I look at like Damesh Shah and I think like, the agent ecosystem he's building is interesting. Mm-hmm. Is that sort of what you're thinking, or are you going more like fully? I don't know. These are somewhat point solutions, right? Like these are not designed to be sort of big comprehensive SaaS solutions. But like, are you looking at this as like agents that you'd be building in the future? Or are
No,
you looking? No.
I'd rather not go that route because agents could be parts of the tool. I don't think well, we don't know. Maybe in 5 years, a company will just sell agents. Not maybe. I'm pretty sure they will.
Yeah.
But what I want to do here, especially with Podpacer, which is we launched that. Cohesio, we're launching very soon. It's more mature. We want to make this the only place you log in when you're doing a podcast. Like this is the only, all of your guest information is there. You're emailing your guests from this platform. So we want to make this when someone thinks about, I need to prepare for a podcast interview, not the editing tools. That's, I don't dare to take on Descript basically, and no one should in this world, but to prepare and manage a podcast, I want this to be the best tool available. Yeah. And there's other phases that we will.
Is that what does it take on like
yeah.
Podscribe at some point? Where you're like, we want it to be the back end, but also like the front end. Because when you think about sourcing guests and I don't know, as you well know, like it's not just the prep for it, but it's also then, oh gosh, now I got to write the synopsis on the website, and I got to pick the image, and I got to make sure like the links are there, and all the, like it's all this sort of core admin.
The way we think about it is, and this is. My podcast was hosted with one of those services that they take your RSS feed and they create a website for you automatically.
Sure.
And it looks cool. But then I realized that in Google Search Console that Google wasn't even crawling my website because of how slow the server was. And that's an opportunity, I think. If we have all this information preparing the interviews, all the information about the guest, and the other ones have only the RSS feed, who's going to have a better guest profile written automatically? Who's going to have a better episode page written automatically? So I think that would be the next step for Podpacer, website hosting. And I mean like a proper, fast, well-written website that has all the information that you may want to have on a website.
Interesting.
Excellent.
Any consideration of a measurement tool? Anything in the measurement space? Just because it's one of those areas that's really hard to think about tooling around right now.
That's a good question. Well, I don't know. I haven't thought about that at all. You don't mean in podcasting. You mean just in general?
No. Broadly speaking, as you think about sort of the divergent lens with which you're operating, where you use AI to create a somewhat simple solution, but then you sort of extrapolate on it. There are all these sort of measurement scenarios where we're talking about these days of, I don't know, coalescing data from multiple different places and so forth.
If I had to think about, and again, I have no idea what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
If I had to come up with something, it would be how do I get some data that others don't have? How do I get the users to give me the data? So maybe something that's kind of like a survey or something like that, but collected in a different way. I'm a fan of zero-party data, so you'll probably go there.
Okay. Awesome. Interesting. Yeah.
Well, we've reached that time, Simon. We're at the end.
We are.
And one thing that we like to do, I think we haven't done it in a couple episodes, but today we're going to bring it back. The incremental insight. That's something that we ask our guests to come with some article or a podcast or some piece of advice that they can share with our audience that is actionable and that they can take and say, I learned this from the Measure Up podcast. Sani, do you have an incremental insight?
Yeah. So I mentioned the book earlier. I guess I have to say what the book is. The book is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Oh yeah.
I know there are people who are like not big fans of Goggins. What I like about him is that all of the crazy things he does, he doesn't say go and do this. Like he just says this works for me, and this goes back to best practices. This works for me. I'm not saying this crazy, stupid. Like he just has a need to run 200 kilometers every week. Most people don't, and most people should not be trying that, but you should try to find what that thing is for you that will get you to feel the most alive. So that book is definitely, I mean, I know a few people who also say it was a life-changing book. So I would definitely say that is the book. There's a podcast I listened to recently this weekend. And again, I never thought I would recommend anything by Hormozi. But Laila Hormozi was on The School of Greatness, and that was such a raw and amazing interview where I just think the facade we see may not be what's actually driving the business, because I didn't like the facade at all for both of them. It was a very, very actionable about starting a business, growing a business, being serious about your business, and questioning yourself whether you're doing the right thing. So I think that episode was absolutely amazing, and I've recommended it to a few people already.
Fantastic. We'll include links in the show notes for those looking for those resources. Simon.
Yeah, we absolutely well, and when you're meandering across life and you find yourself trying all these different things, but you maybe aren't that fulfilled, you're going through that midlife crisis. Maybe there's an opportunity to start something new and realize now is the era of the solopreneur. That's the solopreneur. Solo. I can't say that word. Anyway, it's time to measure up.